Questions from any of the members?
Just a quick comment. I'd like to be kept up to date on the AB5 reauthorization progress. And also, I was wondering if you have a website that contains a lot of the information that you described today.
Yes. Can I send it? I can send it to Tony and all the resources.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
And we do have a summary on our webpage that's more detailed on the president's budget, and we're constantly updating stuff. We could even get all of you on an email list that we send out regular updates on our federal activities to make sure that you have those.
Thank you. Assemblymember Chu.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a quick question. Could you, or may not be able to answer right now, and just talk a little bit about the repatriation of some foreign tax from some companies?
Yeah, I didn't bring all the details on it, but that's how the president is proposing to get the funding for the Highway Trust Fund, the one-time. I can get you the details of the program if you would, or what is being proposed on what companies would be affected and how it would work.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Question?
Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Sure.
I, too, would be very much interested in keeping updated on the EB5 extension legislation. And the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, also is of great interest to me as we go forward with those, plans, because what happens at the federal level in terms of us, keeping in contact with the trading partners is important for our California's economy. So I definitely would be interested in that. Quick question is, you did show us some slides about how California compares to other states in terms, but my specific question will be, how does California's ability to draw down federal funds is California getting the most bang for our buck? And also the question will be, there must be some areas where California can improve in that regard. Does NCSL have best practices that, like using other states as examples that we can use?
Well, when it comes to, one of the things about these dollars, the dollar figures I've given you that may not even completely accurately reflect, these are the ones that are technically, obligated to states, given to states, whether states also in all of these cases take full advantage of it, whether the drawdown is completely there is another challenge. We do, we've got some papers on, at least there are some other states that have established grant offices to kind of help them better coordinate the application and receiving of federal funds, and I'd be happy to share that with everyone. We don't, because it puts NCSL in a challenging position, as especially when it comes from like the competitive side of grants. We don't usually get into advising states necessarily on how to better compete for federal funds, because obviously we serve all the states. So, but if it would be helpful, we can go back and at least put together some best practices, if that would be helpful, and share them with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question? Assemblymember Irwin?
Just a comment and a couple of questions. Actually, our office is looking right now at trying to get a more coordinated effort for grants and actually projects coming into the state, because locally we saw a big issue when we were applying for the to be a drone test site, that there really wasn't coordination in California. So we're definitely looking at that issue as a way to get more projects and grant funding into the state.
And one thing I could think of might be an opportunity. NCSL has several meetings a year, and we're coming up on our legislative summit. And I'm not trying to make a sales pitch for the meeting, but maybe one of the things at our upcoming meetings that we could do is maybe hold a roundtable for state legislators to kind of share about kind of what's going on in their state, some of the challenges, and so you can kind of talk peer-to-peer with legislators in other states about how best to do this. And, if maybe a meeting's not possible, maybe we can even facilitate something by phone where we get some chairs of committees or, members and just talk about kind of what the issues are to make sure that states are, we can help facilitate that.
All right.
If you think that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
And there are some states that are doing a very good job of it already.
Yeah.
So we're definitely looking at those.
Yeah, so we could help facilitate that conversation.
The two things for the transportation funding, obviously we have some of the same issues in California. Are they looking at is the federal government looking at something like California is considered measuring miles as opposed to charging per gallon?
Right. One of the things, and actually NCSL through our policy process, we've been advocating for some funding that would specifically be available for states to be able to pilot new creative mechanisms of financing, whether it's a vehicle miles traveled or some other mechanism. The problem currently in Congress with that is that those revenue, that isn't something that can fix the highway trust fund in the short term. It's hard for them, while there's a commitment to look at the long-term problem, and those are ways to fit the long term, they're so focused on the short term, which means immediate revenue.
Yeah, well, that's a problem in a lot of cases.
Yes,
so.
it is.
So
They have looked at those, and we've even had some legislators in that have come and testified about, in Oregon they're doing the vehicle miles traveled, and we've had some people come in and talk about alternative financing mechanisms. But again, they haven't acted on it. I will tell you that NCSL is in a partnership with the American State, I'm going to get the name wrong, the AASHTO, the American State Highway Transportation Officials. And we have some funding from the Federal Highway Administration to do some technical assistance. We haven't rolled this out yet. We haven't selected the states yet. Some technical assistance where we'll go in and work with states to kind of try and explore new financing mechanisms. So it may be something that, California might be interested in participating in. I think they're going to pick 5 or 6 states first to pilot. But again, we're just in the preliminary stages of that.
Good.
Okay, the last, this has been very interesting, and I know that a lot of the budget proposals, they all sound interesting to talk about, but I don't think that there's much of a chance of it looking like that when they finally get through it. But I am curious about I think it's called the Internet Fairness Act, and you had talked about if there's some tax simplification done first. Certainly, there are certain companies that are doing it in certain states. They already know how to do it. Is there any chance of that passing in Congress?
Well, last Congress, it passed the Senate. It wasn't able to get it through the House. One of the issues right now is where the tax is collected. There's some, issues on, do you do an origin-based or a destination-based? And that's the problem right now. We are hopeful. One of the things also is that the House really hasn't taken up the issue in the committee and done a hearing just on this issue. We had a commitment from Speaker Boehner last year, that this issue would come forward and at least be open, and that maybe we would get a vote on the House floor. The legislation just hasn't moved in the House even to have a vote. It's one of NCSL's top priorities. I can also send the committee, we have lots of resources on this. We actually, in December, during our meeting, we took all the legislators that were in town up to Capitol Hill, not only to lobby their members on this issue, but also on transportation, because obviously that's a big issue.
Thank you.
But I'd be happy to send you more resources on that.
And our committee staff will follow up with many of the questions and programs that we've inquired about. I just wanted to thank you again for that overview. I know that last year the legislature approved close to $100 billion of federal funds into our state budget. One of the things that I think our committee should take a look at is how are we maximizing those dollars when we have the ability to have the greatest economic impact, right, in our state. Of course, not looking at the funds that already have restricted conditions, but there are ways that we can maximize some of those dollars. And, of course, looking at other federal funds that perhaps the state currently isn't seeking after. I know that this committee tackled the issue of new market tax credits last year, maximizing matching dollars with the federal government and hoping that we can consider those types of initiatives moving forward. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For
one of the
joining
things,
us.
just to let you know, that NCSL is always working on is whenever possible when we can get language in a federal bill to make sure that those federal funds are subject to the appropriation of the state legislature to make sure it flows through the appropriations process. It's always something we work on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 5, small business drivers, the state's economic growth. We've got 3 speakers, Scott Hoggy, Dave Petrie, and Sean Garretepe. And I will introduce our speakers as they come up to the panel. We've heard in the previous panels about the overall economy, trends, and funding. In the last panel, we will be hearing directly from small businesses. As the committee knows, the economic strength of California is highly dependent on the strength of our small businesses. Entrepreneurship has been an important tool for Americans to transform their lives, whether we are talking about immigrants or fifth-generation Californians. Small businesses ownership has served as the leader to better quality of life and the freedom to choose. In this panel, we have invited 3 small business owners to share their professional experiences and provide insight into programs, services, and circumstances that support and challenge their success. To begin, I have asked each of our entrepreneurs to give us 3 to 5 minutes of prepared comments, which will be followed by another 15 or so minutes of questions from the members. Given the brevity of the opening comments, let's hold questions from this committee for the speakers until they all complete their comments. Our first speaker is Scott Hoggy, who is president of Cal Insurance, a company founded in 1927 and which currently has 25 employees. The company has achieved benefit corporation certification while continuing to specialize in providing insurance for small and medium-sized businesses. In addition to his own company, Mr. Hogg is the executive director of a small business California advocacy organization focused on the needs of small businesses. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, Mr. Chair and committee members, and really appreciate your holding this very important hearing. As you said, I'm the owner of Cal Insurance. Cal Insurance primarily insures small businesses, so I have a pretty good understanding of the issues and challenges that face small business. You also mentioned that I'm the president and founder of Small Business California. And Small Business California does an annual survey, and we've been doing this now for 11 years. We're in the process of doing our 11th annual survey. And we ask the opinions of small business. And I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to kind of go through the results this year and compare them with last year. I think what they show is an optimism from small business that hasn't existed in the past. It was better last year than it was the year before, so it's been progressively getting better. So we asked the question, is California going the right direction? And last year, 49.4% said the wrong direction. And this year, 35.24% said the wrong direction. The right direction, 38.2% said the right direction last year. 47.6% said the right direction this year. We asked specific areas for them to comment on, one of which was the economy and how they feel about the economy. 2014, 34.5% said the economy was poor or very poor. 2015, 13.5% said poor or very poor. As far as the good and very good, 15.8 in 2014 said it was good or very good, and in 2015, 48.85 said good and very good. We asked about the business climate. 2014, 50.7 said poor and very poor. 2015, 42.2 said poor and very poor. 12.8% said good and very good. 25.7% said good and very good this year. The business climate for small business, and here's where the numbers kind of drop a bit. In 2014, 63.5% said poor and very poor, and in 2015, 60% said poor and very poor. 10.1% in 2014 said good and very good, and 16.5% this year said good and very good. We asked about their gross receipts. In 2014, 30% said they had increased. In 2015, 54.2% said they'd increased. 32.5% in 2014 said decreased, and 21% said decreased in 2015. Do you plan on hiring? In 2014, 34.1% said yes, and in 2015, 43% said yes. As far as we also wanted to find out at what level. We thought it would be interesting to find out at what payroll level were they going to be offering. And these numbers are based on the total, so they're about half of what the actual percentage would be for people that would respond. Minimum wage to $15, 11%. As I said, it probably is going to be about double. $12 to $15, 15.7%. $15 to $20, 8.2%. Over $20, 15.7%. I think one of the most fascinating questions is, do you see yourself in business in 3 years? And in 2014, 21% said no, and there's a typo there. That should be 12.8% this year said no. We also asked, it's not here, but we also asked a question about, are you aware of state lending programs? And only 14% of the people that responded were aware of those programs. The one issue, and have limited time and look forward to the questions, but the one issue that I would like to address is the technical assistance programs. Mr. Chair, you have a measure, AB 184, that is a really good proposal that codifies the technical assistance programs. We think that's an excellent proposal. We would like to see that expanded to include financing by California. California is one of the few states in the country that doesn't finance, for example, the SBDCs. And as a result, we give back money to the rest of the country that we could be receiving, and that just doesn't make any sense. It can be highly leveraged. I guess the issue has been, how do we know the quality of what they're doing? They've gone back and reassessed what they're doing, their numbers. There's a federal government oversight, and we think the quality is there, and it's, I think, the most important program. The women's centers are important too, but it's the most important program out there for technical assistance for small businesses.
I agree. Thank you. Move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Dave Petrie. Mr. Petrie is a 20-year veteran in technology field and is a founder and CEO of Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger is a Sacramento startup software company which specializes in cybersecurity for the average computer user. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me here. And when thinking about what I was going to say, I was going to go less with quotable metrics and go more with personal experience, because they say that that's kind of what you're interested in.
Yes, sir.
So I can tell you that this is my third startup, and most successful, because my wife hasn't threatened to leave me yet. So far, so good. And I can speak to the programs that when you first start these kinds of things, one of the things that's been mentioned before is access to working capital when you're a startup. And, you know, people typically think of companies like mine when you hear startup, you know, software company or something like that, something creative. But a lot of startups are more brick and mortar service oriented companies, and so they don't really get a lot of the same type of attention. But with that said, it seems like California economy has definitely moved towards a creative service-based economy. So when you go to places like the SBC that's going to back loans, things like that, it's usually for some sort of tangible items, like you need a tree trimming machine or a few more trucks for your business and things like that. And they have programs for that. But I have personally seen a lot of really great ideas flounder by the roadside because they had no access to any type of capital, specifically for working capital, because a lot of it is just for, fax machines and phone numbers and a desk and a computer for you to use and things like that. So I've also, from personal experience in the private sector, there are a lot of incubating businesses where you have shared space and you have shared resources, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I can buy you a beer after this and tell you about the economic, downside to it. But from a small business perspective, that's great because you can actually start a business cheaper than ever before and actually represent yourself very professionally more than ever before, but it's still under the private sector. And we happen to be incubating through SARTA, which is a great program because they give us a really good deal on rent and access to meeting rooms and things like that. And if there was some sort of merger between those two from state government to foster what would be necessary for working capital, if you can't necessarily provide or guarantee the capital for that working capital, maybe you can provide what that would be spent on. In other words, if there were more state-sponsored innovation or incubating locations, I'm sure you guys have extra office space and some things that maybe if somebody's starting a business, you'd be able to provide them a phone number, website, and in congruency with that, some of these SBC consultants for helping them through business plans and things like that might be able to be there on site. They'd have reception. They'd have a lot of resources there to really give them a shot at being successful. I mean, it is hard enough as it is. And, luckily, I've had a pretty good career, so I can afford to go a year or two without really paying myself. I mean, literally the young lady that does my Facebook posts makes more money than I do right now. But I've seen a lot of great ideas that just that can't do that. And there's private equity money, there's convertible notes options and things like that, but most of that is Bay Area and all private, and it's not really geared towards the fundamental good ideas that come out of everybody else's minds. And that would be a great start.
Thank you. We'll move on to the third and final presenter. Our final entrepreneur is Mr. Sean Garatepe, the CEO of CellPoint Corporation, a global manufacturing firm based in Orange County with other facilities in Fort Worth, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. In his 12 years at CellPoint, Mr. Garatepe has gained extensive international experience identifying and building new business opportunities. His specialties include supply chain management, global operations, and international markets. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you for having me. So to introduce myself, I'm Sean Garatepe, as you pointed out. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my company and then a little bit about some of the challenges that we experience as a business. So as you mentioned, we've been in business for 12 years. We have two main business lines. One of those is that we fix broken LCDs for cell phones. And then secondly is that we distribute parts for cell phones. We're dealing with national network operators, insurance carriers, and companies like this in order to support their supply chain. So I see a tremendous opportunity in our industry, because when I first started this industry, companies were taking phones back and they'd have a scratch on it and they literally put it in a trash can. Or what's worse is pay a company to come and actually dispose of that, someplace else. Now, fast forward to today, there's tremendous demand for bringing refurbished devices into the marketplace as a substitute to brand new. Before, the carriers would be forced to spend $800 on a new device when a customer brought it in. Now they can pay companies like mine $200 or even less and make an old device like new again, cutting significant cost for them and creating an additional profit center. So I'm really passionate about this industry. I started in it 12 years ago. It's pretty much been the only industry that I've ever been in. I love the fact that we're always discovering new things, and I love the fact that a lot of the things that we're doing has never been done before, like LCD repair and polarizer replacement and things like that. So 8 years ago, pretty much all the service work was moved to Asia. So companies that had repair operations in Texas and the North, the West, and so on, moved it to Asia. And we were also part of that, which is why we started the factory in Shanghai and in Hong Kong. You fast forward to today, customers are no longer so concerned about price, and it's much more about lead times. So we've recognized that there is a significant value proposition in order to be located close to our customers in close physical proximity to give them products quicker than we'd be able to in Asia. So to answer that demand, we've opened up a factory in Dallas, Texas, just last year. And the reason that we chose Dallas is not just for the obvious ones about taxes and all that other stuff, but it really has to do with the supply chain. The fact that all of our customers that we deal with, all the major national network operators, as well as the OEMs, are located there. So in order for us to have a competitive advantage, which I believe is the essence of business, competitive advantage and value, we needed to be there. Not convenient for me, not convenient for my wife and my 2 kids. I have a 4- and a 6-year-old at home, and I'm always on the road in order to try and get this factory up and running and fully functional. If it were up to me, it would be in my interest to have a factory right next to my house, 10 minutes, so I could be home every day and do what my wife wants me to do. So to that note, I view the opportunity is great. Even if California were to eliminate the state income taxes tomorrow, that still would not be enough to put my manufacturing operations back here in California. Because all of our customers, Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies, are there. Yeah. In order for us to fulfill our value proposition, which is our very existence, we need them to come here as well, which, as you're aware, is actually the opposite is happening. So, years ago, I felt guilty that our biggest expense within the company was labor and manufacturing, and that was all getting sent to Asia. And love this country, love this state, and I asked myself, why? I have no choice but to pretty much pump money into China's economy in order to have a sustainable business. Luckily, today, that's not the same story, and I think that's true. And on a macro level, among many businesses, companies are moving back to America, not just mine, but many others, from big to small to medium. But still faced with another dilemma that all the strategic and competitive advantage that I need to be successful in my business is in Texas, not here. So in California, I've got a corporate headquarters where myself and 8 other people reside, and it's basically my global team in order to manage the company. People have asked me before, all the way from my CPAs to friends to, business associates, why are you in California? You don't have any customers in California. You don't have any business in California. It's just basically you and your executive team, and you guys are always on the road. And very often, the answer is the weather. It's a ginormous selling point, and, maybe part of the reason why most of us spend 5 times more for real estate here than we would in other places. So we've got this great, beautiful place, California, that would cause people like me to take a huge financial hit in order to be here. And it's for, not just the weather, I say that jokingly, but it's really for the way of life. The natural things that there are to experience with family, the opportunities here, and everything that makes California so great, all the stuff that we all love about it. Not in that position. So in a perfect world, I would love to have some laws enabled through the help of government, through the help of private enterprise, to enable a really competitive environment and marketplace here in California where big companies could move back here, and then all the smaller companies like us that support them could also follow in lockstep.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That's very insightful. And before we go into the questions, I did want to just thank our Vice Chair, Kim, who actually invited you to be part of this hearing today. So thank you. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. So members.
Let me start.
Sure.
Chairman, if you don't mind. So Mr. Karatepa, thank you very much. As Chair mentioned, I invited you to be here because of your fascinating business. And you really do exemplify. You are the perfect face of a melting pot of, Orange County small business. But, the fact that you are growing globally. You talked a lot about your corporate offices being in Orange County and the way of life and quality of life. The weather is perfect, yes. We all love it. That's why we're all here. But given all these great things that California affords, the fact that you had to move your operation to out of our state and to other countries is what's concerning me. We want you to stay here, and the reason why we're having this hearing is because we want to hear from you and the other panelists what experiences you're facing, what challenges you're facing, and you have given us a lot of information that we can ponder on as we work on the various policies and legislation just to do exactly what you're asking us to do, to make California more business friendly and create a business climate that you would want to bring back all your operations back to California. In that sense, I want to thank all three speakers for giving us your background on your businesses, and as well in your presentations, you gave us some wish list, which I wrote down. But to be fair, as a summary, may I ask to any and all panelists, if I could wave a magic wand of some sort today and grant you 3 wishes. Tell me or tell us what they would be and how they would affect your businesses.
Well, I could speak. Wish number 1 would be to have a program in place that you waived state tax for the first 2 or 3 years for a startup business, and that would be contingent on the business maybe staying in California for 3 years after that, or all the taxes become due in kind. Something like that. Waiving the $800 or $850, that's a minimum requirement when you're an LLC, whether you sell anything or not. That's, really challenging. And like I said, supplying either working capital for some of these fresh ideas or some sort of incubator program that allowed people to function as a business without having to pay for all of that stuff, such as rent and phone and utilities, internet, all that kind of stuff.
I guess my response to that is